Hi there, welcome to Canberra Community Convos. My name's Alana and I work for Canberra's largest community organisation, Communities at Work. Our aim is to enrich the lives of Canberrans and create better futures through positive social impact. With a diverse range of experts from across our organisation, we definitely have a lot to say and a lot of information we want to share with you. So tune in monthly to hear from thought leaders from both within and outside Communities at Work. Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to introduce you to amazing people who are working in our OSH space here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Alister Abercrombie. I am the Behaviour Support and Service Development Officer for OSH. Pretty much means dealing with the realm of supporting children's behaviour and compliance with the national laws and regulations.
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Shaniah Norman. I'm second in charge at an OSH service. OSH stands for Out of School Hours Care, means pretty much that. We look after the children before and after school care when their parents are still working.
Awesome. And that's for primary school age children, yes?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We do also have preschools as well.
Oh, lovely. So what age range do we cover in OSH?
K to 6 is our primary school age one, and then, preschool.
Awesome. And what kind of activities will typically take place in OSH centres?
We usually base off our activities off of our observations and all of that kind of thing with what children are interested in and that kind of situation. It really depends on the children that you've got, what kind of activities they like. Like recently we did a maze inside, we run sports activities quite frequently, we do craft activities, try and kind of meet every child's range of what they like doing in the service.
That's lovely. And what are the purpose of the activities themselves?
To get the children engaged, mostly at our services. We want them to be engaged and, have fun.
Yeah.
While they're here.
Oh, beautiful. Do you have anything to add to that, Alister?
Look, I don't want to get too stuck into the theory of it, but our learning frameworks pretty much set the goal for us to help children develop, right? So we're not in a space anymore where OSH might be viewed as a completely separate component where children just go to hang out after school. We really don't like that one anymore. We really want everyone to understand like the effort that our teams put in to carry out this educational program that Shaniah is talking about. So broadly speaking, the team try and get this delicate mix of trying to figure out what the children are interested in, because it's not the same as school, so we don't have to sit down and learn multiplication if we don't like multiplication. But broadly speaking, if they're interested, they're going to engage more. But we want to broadly achieve developmental milestones. We want to help facilitate that interpersonal and intrapersonal understanding. Our framework encourages us to explore what culture and community mean for children, learning about themselves, learning about others. And that's essentially trying to wrap that up in what children are interested at the time. So it's kind of hard to describe like what happens on a given day in OSH, because that can just look so different across all the different sides. But Shaniah, do you want to lead? So on a given day, what would you expect you and your team to be running for the children?
At our service, we have heaps of different spaces allocated in our area. We've got like a dramatic play area. We've got our rest and relaxation area where there's heaps of books and a tent that we can use. We've got our building areas, so heaps of kids, especially the younger ones, definitely like the Legos and the building blocks and everything like that. And then we've got our craft and then our board games and that's our general setup, as well as the sports and everything outside. But on any given day, the children could spring up on us and be like, oh, let's do a cooking experience today. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we've got this and this and this. Let's do that. Like it really can be spontaneous as well as planned. Yeah.
Beautiful. So it kind of seems like no child ever has to get stuck doing an activity they want to do, because we only have so many educators and so many activities that this is what we're doing, this is the structure, this is our curriculum for the day.
We like to be as, what's the word? We like to be able to flow as the children and, flow with them and do what they want to do and give them the opportunity to do that.
Now, I wanted to ask, how does OSH play a role in the children's education and development directly then, if what they're doing is activities?
I feel like a lot of their development and everything, it can come across in our play-based learning. And getting them to be social and engage with others is a huge thing for their development. Being able to work as a group and being able to work by yourself as well when you want to just hang out by yourself when you're there. And I think it's really important for children's development to be able to just socially engage in our area.
Beautiful. Yeah. Is someone able to explain what play-based learning actually is for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So gone are the times where we would kind of think about play-based learning play as a child's just interaction with an object. Is the child stacking the blocks in a particular way? We've kind of moved to this broader idea where play is actually an entire developmental domain for the child, right? And it's a space where they get to explore and express. It's actually their main mode of creativity. They can look at interpersonal relations, intrapersonal development. It's where they just get to act out who they might become in the future, if we take that real developmental view of play. So play can just be the broadest range of interactions if you really run with that definition. And in OSH, it's our job to facilitate that play.
Excellent. So if they say, we want to do a cooking experience today, you can see that that's the way they're learning.
Yeah.
And so as an example, you might see children playing a cooking game, right? Shaniah was talking about a dramatic play space. The children in that space, the interaction between themselves, the object, the setting they have in their mind, and the interaction with others, they might learn things like, being cooperative to meet a goal. So it might be to make the cakes for the customers that they've made up. They might practice a bit of conflict resolution because you've got to figure out with your peers how the shop is going to run. Some of the savvy children might even try and figure out a pricing schedule that's going to help make a viable business, right? So there's so many things that play lets children explore, but with none of the risk of 8-year-olds actually setting up a business. Right?
And watching that fall apart and learning about failure.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if that's something they can legally do, but yes.
Excellent. So on the other side of that, is OSH able to help children with more significant issues in their lives? So things like social issues or issues at home, issues making friends. Is that something we address in OSH?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's probably pick those out one at a time. Yeah. So look, children's positive engagement in OSH, it's completely wrapped up in how they integrate into the system. So you can't discount their social interactions, right? If you have a child in OSH that is having trouble making friends and doesn't have anyone they can positively engage with, we wouldn't really expect them to be they wouldn't be happy in the space, and they're probably not going to work with everyone to provide a positive space, right? So the educators will really actively try and scaffold that development, right? So figuring out why might that child be having trouble, and that can be a range of reasons, and then trying to support that in the least sense possible, because if you support it too much, they don't actually make the friends themselves. So it's that the bare essentials of support, so the child still gets to grow a little bit in that space and learn how to make friends themselves, not just be told they need to play with other children. Let's do another one. Social issues. What's a big social issue? Sustainability is a big one. Okay. Children these days, it's becoming more and more present. There's a bit of climate anxiety within children, and you might have seen a few news headlines about children starting to engage in things like protests or trying to provide like policy direction for the government and what they should be doing. Because at the end of the day, we're talking 30, 40 years in the future, and that's the children's future, right? They're going to be the leaders of our society at that time. So they're all really already starting to really want to engage on those issues. So at a service level, how might we meet that is, all those same things is, what is the service's policy on sustainability? What do we do? How do we work together on that? And having the children get a chance to contribute to those ideas in creating like a service sustainability plan where they might outline their goals for recycling. And Shaniah's talking about all these wonderful activities they do. are we wasting materials when we do that? Like, can we use recycled materials that all the children bring in from home instead of Shaniah having to go out and buy brand new single-use plastics to facilitate these activities? So children contributing to that, it helps make not only their engagement with the service more meaningful, but it allows them to learn what society is going to be like and practice it on that smaller level.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you have any examples of where you've seen this in practice in the service, Shaniah?
Well, we do frequent... we kind of get a group together at our service, and we frequently do activities where we'll get them together and go around the school and pick up all the rubbish that was picked up afterwards.
Oh, excellent.
We have done a sustainability project within comms OSH services before, where we actually made a hot air balloon at our service.
What was the goal of that? What was the theme of the challenge, Shaniah? Do you remember?
I actually can't. I can't remember the theme of it.
I think it was our sustainable future.
Yeah.
Children had to use recycled materials to build their vision of a future together.
Yeah.
So do you remember what the hot air balloon, what the goal was with that?
With our hot air balloon, it was mostly we got the children's opinions, and that's what's one of the things that they wanted to create with the recyclables that we had.
Wasn't it a sustainable transport option, like the vision for the future?
Yeah, because we had so many plastic bags from when we get groceries delivered, and we used that and ironed them all together with the kids and made the actual balloon part out of it, and then the cardboard for the outside, we got them to bring in cardboard from their families and use them to come and bring all that stuff in.
Fantastic. And for the children themselves, having that initiative going, this is what we want to build, these are the materials we know we have access to, and be able to just say, this is what we want. And the educators are really there to just facilitate that need to take initiative in the children themselves.
Yeah.
And then in turn drag the giant construction, because Shaniah wasn't talking about a 1 foot tall little balloon model. I think this thing was a good 9 feet tall.
Inside of it. Yeah.
And so the educator's role was definitely to take that into the office so everyone could admire it.
Yeah.
So,
I think we actually had to take it apart to get it here.
Wow. And the kind of things that you wouldn't see in a classroom and you wouldn't see children doing at home either. This is the space for them to do that.
Yeah, because look, the Australian curriculum is jam-packed, right? There's no two ways about it. Teachers have so many things they need to get through in their day-to-day, and what they don't actually have is the luxury of time, right? When you don't have obligations to meet certain goals under a curriculum, right? Our learning frameworks are very much about that. We acknowledge that it's a leisure-based setting, right? If a child says that I want to sit down and put my feet up all afternoon, that's okay. But it's the child's, it's their right to choose, essentially. And then on the other side of that, we do have all of this rich programming that they can engage in. But what I find is the space with which OSH operates in a leisure-based program, it actually breeds a bit of creativity, because they have time to think, well, what do I want to do, not what do I need to do in this lesson block today? So we have some really wonderful things come out of that. And that's that very much child-directed focus of our program.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. Now, I wanted to get a little more serious now and just talk about what kind of training the educators themselves face when it comes to things like behaviour management, additional needs, children who can't just go off and play and be completely happy doing their own thing and making friends and whatnot, but those actual children that need a bit more help.
Yep. Yeah. It's no secret that behaviour management is a hot topic right now. It's a bit of can of worms. Everyone has their own 2 cents on it. So this is very much just what I'm going to talk about is the space where we think we're best suited to deliver good outcomes for children right now. Behaviour support needs are on the rise. Mental health issues in children are on the rise, and the need for care is on the rise. So all of those factors together has kind of turned not only OSH but the entire education and care sector towards really focusing on behaviour management. So what OSH really does is operate on, I guess you could loosely call it a positive behaviour support framework, right? And that one of the key principles of that is just acknowledging that behavior is a form of communication. Now, it can communicate personal stress. It can communicate a child's skill or capacity to cope in an area. It can reflect what their external relationships are looking like. So all of those things factored in, a behavior comes out the other end, right, within the context of what the child's dealing with. So what we pretty much do is we have to find what's behind that. Like, what are they trying to communicate? And that can be a whole bunch of things. What am I going to say? Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Checking the notes. Behavior is influenced by personal aspects, so thoughts and feelings of the child. It's influenced by their environment, so what's going on within the space, what's happening with our routines, who's there, and it's influenced by other people. So I'm responding to other people in this space right now. So we've got to kind of wade through all that and try and figure out how best to support children. So at the end of the day, I think one of the main goals is understanding that behaviors aren't necessarily bad, because if you view behaviors as bad, you feel worse about interacting with this child. It motivates you to think that that punishment is the goal, that you can punish bad behaviors out of children. And it's all just, I guess it's it's quite an old school way of viewing behavior. So we're well past that. The real trick is, how do we get all of that, because that's obviously quite a dense area of discussion and research. How do we get that out to the best way possible for our educators? So back to the question, some background. So we run a few different trainings. So we'll use a bit of a mix of like formal training opportunities. So there's a program we use. I'm a certified trainer in Team Teach. So what that is essentially is the ACT Directorate's chosen de-escalation framework, right? So how do we support children in crisis? How do we learn about the function of their behavior? And how do we really bring values into this? So what's good for children? What do we want from children? What do we want children to become? And what matters to us personally in these interactions, right? How do we prioritize relationships? So that's fantastic training that we try and get across. Informally, I'll do a lot of training with educators around how do you respond to behavior at the most basic level. So if a child isn't engaging in the routines fully, if you've got some, more minor behaviors, so that's kind of like the littering and a bit of non-compliance, that kind of stuff. How do you respond to these behaviors? The real focus of those sessions is to learn that behavior happens on a bit of a continuum, and you want to learn how to respond in kind, right? So, for instance, if a child is, let's go with littering. Littering necessitates a very, very different level of response than stealing does, right? So learning this kind of gradual and graded approach, so you actually get a chance to prioritize learning about what the right thing is instead of kind of coming in and steamrolling children. So gradual and graded, that's the absolute focus. And then really underpinning that it all does come back to the values and positive relationships we want to build with children, right? What else do we do? From there, there'll be a lot of on-site mentoring that the program coordinators do. So they will... some of them are very opportunistic, and they might see an educator that's kind of struggling in their interaction with the child, and they might come in and do some coaching. Actually, Shaniah, this could be a good part. I saw the nodding. Is there anything you want to add to that? Talk about what that looks like at your side, or how you might help your staff with that?
As soon as the staff come in, we kind of talk about the behavioural plans that we've got in place, and that I want them to kind of just observe how we interact with them. Even when we're not interacting with them, I feel like we really need to observe those children to kind of pick up on those little tics that might be setting them off a little bit, because it might be something that we're not really seeing as a huge thing, but to that child it could be a huge thing for them.
Feels like the end of the world.
But I really find that how I learnt to be able to help support those children was by observing people that knew how to interact with them and being able to see how they do it, and then kind of stepping in and not copying, but like seeing how they deal with it and following them.
Yeah. There is an element of modelling, because I could sit here and talk theory about managing children's behaviour all day. No worries. Happy to do it if we want this podcast to drag out for 6 hours. But at the end of the day, if someone listened to that, they wouldn't necessarily come away with the actual competencies in managing children's behaviours, because it's such a multifaceted area. You really can't do it without seeing it in action and then experiencing it. So all the theory in the world won't necessarily get across what Shaniah's talking about there, which is engaging in some supported coaching and mentoring and being able to reflect with someone who is really competent. I really, really enjoy it when I have an educator that I can kind of, get them to step off the floor for a moment. We get a chance to talk about what worked, what didn't work. And then at the end of the day, if we can connect it back to this idea of, you've just supported this child in having a better day. You've supported their ability to regulate themselves in the space and just positively engage broadly a little bit. If we can bring it back to that, it's a really, really strong moment with educators.
Yeah, it's very much one of those things that can't be put into a framework as such. It's more of a guide, because every child is completely different. And, one thing might work for one child and it might not work for someone else.
Yeah. So what I try and do, because Shaniah's hit the nail on the head there, is the way I try and train educators to manage behaviour, it really I have to put the qualifier on it that this is really you're going to have an 85% success rate. I think it works on average, right? If you do it right. Yeah. But some people kind of think, well, then that doesn't work, right? But children are so unique and situations are so unique and context changes that I actually think 85% is a pretty good run at it, right?
Yeah.
So if we can do 85% of the time, or 85% of the children, then that lets us kind of focus more effort on the children that it's not working for. Instead, that's when we start looking into a bit more targeted behaviour support. So what that kind of looks like in general, we have an inclusion support officer, Emily Smith. Shout out, Emily. Yeah, she'll like that, maybe. Or hate it. I don't know.
No, she'll love it.
We'll find out.
So what the services might do, they might say that we're really struggling to support this child, and that might be an email to Emily and myself. And the first thing we'll look at is, are we doing the 85% of it right? Are we supporting everyone? Are we using our, I guess we call it our universal approaches right? If the answer is no, then we don't necessarily need to engage in really targeted support for that child. We just need to get better at supporting generally, and we see if that works, right? If the answer is yes, we're actually really good at our universal support strategies and this child is just particularly struggling and needs that extra support, that's when we kind of delve into this targeted approach. That might be when we do a bit more functional analysis and see what's working for this specific child, what isn't working. I know I talked before about what children are trying to communicate for their behaviours, so we try and do a bit of that back-end analysis, because I acknowledge it's really, really tough for educators. A lot of them are studying at university and they're just kind of popping it into out-of-school hours care for a couple of years as a casual job. It's really, really hard if they have to learn how to do a targeted behaviour support framework just for a child in what really isn't going to be their career, if we're honest. So if we can help bridge that gap and give them the tools and do that back-end analysis, that's when we try and come up with a bit of a behaviour support plan. And that's almost the shortcuts and how-tos that'll hopefully help minimize the problem behaviour and support the child and just get that overall positive engagement.
I really do like the full circleness of it all, is that the children are watching adults and copying their behaviour, and then the younger trainers are watching the more senior educators so that they learn what to do, and the senior educators then watching the children trying to figure out what's best for them. And it's a lot of everyone watching and supporting each other in this beautiful ecosystem almost that we've created in OSHC.
Yeah. On that, I love that you've used the word ecosystem. So another thing that came through our framework in the last review was this holistic approach idea. So it would be a complete waste of everyone's time if a child was really, really struggling to positively engage at school and in out of school hours care and at home, and we just individually just addressed every single element, right? So what we actually find is that with some children and some families, we get really good buy-in for a bit of wraparound support, and we might figure if there's common problems and something's happening at school, but they've kind of figured out a way past it, if we can get continuity of those strategies, at the end of the day, not only is it easier for us, it's better for the young person, and it's better for the families just knowing that support is there for their child. So that's another thing we'll do is try and link with the right people at schools to support.
Yeah, as well as the fact that, the communication and the relationship with those families there, it is incredibly helpful being able to have that relationship with the families to be able to connect those links as well. Same with the school. Like even sometimes, we can go and have a chat with a certain teacher, or the teachers will bring them down and, talk to us about whether or not they've had a good day at school as well. It helps us support how we structure our afternoons.
That continuity is beautiful, yeah. Now, building on that, Alister, can you tell me a little bit more about issues children might be facing at home and how that translates into OSH and what we do there?
Yeah, all right, I know I said this before, but I don't really think there's that same distinction when we look at like school, home, and out of school hours care. I don't think that exists anymore. So when we're talking about issues, they're not so much issues at home, they're just issues that the child's dealing with, right? So anything under the sun, the family might be in the process of separating, and that's very much an issue at home, but it's just an issue for the child that they've got to be supported with. So I know Shaniah's talked about like the value of relationships we have with children. So hopefully we can have some really positive people that are really a stable force in that child's life, still be there showing them that, the world's not ending. It's a bit tough right now, but we're still here for you and we're still going to have the best day that we can have. Other things that can come up, we have quite a few children that might have a disability within our programs. We actually have some parents that what they really need from us is a little bit of advice and guidance, like how can I do a better job as a parent, because it's challenging, right? And I don't feel like I've got all the answers, but hopefully I might have a bit of knowledge about some tips and tricks or some things that they can do that can help kind of make the transition into OSH and school a little bit smoother. What else? I think that's kind of like issues at home wrapped up, because it could just look so many different ways. Other issues facing children, there's always cultural understanding, I think, is a big one. We're living in a time where Australia is just getting, more and more multicultural. I guess the world is for that matter. And you can end up with this tricky problem where culture clash happens, right? And I don't think that's something that anyone wants. And the way you really get around that is by exploring culture and just being familiar with it. So when teams like Shaniah's will, they might do a bit of a survey and figure out what's the background culture of all the families in their service, right? And the way you explore that the most authentically is tell us about what's meaningful to you, and then you're the expert on it. How do we integrate some of that into our service? So a really common one, there might be like a bit of a celebrations calendar that just kind of covers the meaningful events for different cultures and the services. And it just gives children a chance to kind of explore that in the context of OSH, because they might not come across it in their general day-to-day. It's, so it's almost a bit of the melting pot of experiences. And because we have that leisure-based framework and the time to explore these things, that's where it all really, really comes together, and they get to authentically investigate some of those experiences around culture. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and authentically is such a good word to describe what happens at OSH as well.
Yeah. We have some fantastic educators that they might get a chance to express their culture. There's a lovely educator who I won't name, and they really, really enjoy making, I think it's a potato curry. I think it's, yes, a potato curry, and the children go absolutely wild when it's on the menu and they love it. But this this person's actually getting to express a piece of their culture and have the children engage in it. I think there's nothing more beautiful than that when I know we've all seen children at restaurants spit out their food and not be too happy with that, but maybe it's a time where they can see other people be really invested and engaged with different types of food, and that's all building their cultural sensitivity and understanding.
It also builds their connection to community, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So OSH works, it's an important part of the community. I guess I like to view it as there's, I heard the saying, it takes a town to raise a child, right? So I guess what that's really saying is not the effort that so many people need to put in effort to raise a child. I think what it more speaks to is the interaction between the child and their broader community and where OSH sits in that. So, in the community, we provide care for families. That's an important aspect. It's becoming less and less viable for families to have one of a caregiver stay at home. So OSH is becoming more and more important, and families really rely on us for that. So that's one function.
And I suppose connection to community for the OSH service also comes across in the context of the school itself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Our teams are really involved in, I guess, the school culture, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we really like to have our coordinators. They might be present for like school assemblies, for graduations. I know that's always a really, really big time of year. It's definitely hard for the coordinators waving off and saying goodbye to the Year 6 children that they might have spent the past 6 years seeing almost every single day, and then they've got to wave them off to high school, and that might be our involvement in that child's life being done for the moment, which I think is a bit bittersweet sometimes. We're really involved and engaged with the school. We'll have pretty frequent meetings with the school principals, and we will talk about what's going on in the service. So we find our principals are really articulate and focused with what they might hope to achieve. This might be a time where we get to sit down and a principal might talk about a fundraiser that the school's participating in. And we'll have sites and they'll become involved. Don't quote me on numbers. I can never remember anything there. But I think it was the Red Nose Day celebrations, one of our centres where they did a whole lot of fundraising, and I think they ended up with $500 or so for charity, and that was talking about these child-based interest frameworks. This was all driven by the children, acted out by the children, and our coordinator just got to take that little cash box and drop it off to the right person.
Facilitate it, yeah.
And then the children just get to see that really authentic interaction with community and kind of start learning what their place looks like. Another challenge that children are facing right now is the negative impacts of COVID. I know, can't talk. It's the elephant in the room,
Can't talk without talking about it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do really worry about children. I think the research is yet to come out on it, but I think what we're going to see is some really, really startling impact it's had on children's development. They might have had the better part of a year where they didn't get to see their peers and meet those same developmental milestones. From an anecdotal level, I'm definitely seeing, some children just seem to be a little bit further back, right? They just haven't had that time, because children learn by doing, and they just haven't had the chance to do that. So it's really, OSH is a really good place for children to get to experience that scaffolded interaction and hopefully start kind of making up what they missed a little bit.
Now, I want to bring it back to our educators for a second and just talk about, Shaniah might be able to answer this for me, what the benefit of working in out-of-school hours care is for your career itself.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint so much. I really enjoy working with children. I feel like being able to come to work and see how much these children are developing and progressing every single day and changing is incredible. Like, I kind of understand how why teachers are teachers and why parents become parents. It's pretty incredible to be able to see the amount of different children we have and how they progress every single time that they come in and how much they learn. And it's pretty cool to be able to see.
Amazing. Shaniah, I wanted to ask you from a personal perspective why it is that you do what you do.
Look, I did kind of fall into this position before this, I was doing at-home nursing. So I was kind of still in that, caring kind of, caring for other people. I did grow up with my mum doing at-home childcare. Childcare centre based at her house. She did it for about 10 years. Pretty much my first 10 years of my life were other children.
Lived in a daycare.
Yeah, living in a daycare, which was incredibly fun for me personally, being able to just have access to all of that sort of stuff and kind of live there while the other kids had to go home and I got to stay. But being able to be a role model for children as well and giving them the opportunity, I feel like in a school, it's the relationship that we build with them is a lot more kind of calming almost. I don't know if that's the word that I want to use. But the relationship that we build with the children gets them to be able to open up with us quite a lot about how they feel and what they are wanting and the opportunities that they want. And we are able to give it to them and be a role model to them. And I feel like that's really fulfilling as an educator, being able to support children that way.
Beautiful. How long have you been working in OSH with Communities at Work?
I think 2 years, around that area. Yeah, and for me, I didn't expect to be where I am still. I think I've progressed very quickly from being just a casual educator, not really knowing what this job would entail in my future and where I would be going to, starting my Cert 3 and then being 2IC and then, hopefully progressing further.
Shaniah, what was your perception of, because I remember the casual educator days for you.
Yes.
What was it like? Did you have this eye-opening moment when you realised how loaded the compliance regulation side of it, but also the requirements of the national quality framework and how much is actually jammed into OSH and how much it guides what we do and hope to achieve? Yeah,
look, it actually kind of threw me a little bit because I didn't expect... I didn't really think that this much actually went into what we do. Yeah. And, I didn't really know all of that behind the scenes stuff that we have to put into work every single day with the children. And being able to learn that within these 2 years is pretty cool.
And I guess if we're really, really good at it, you shouldn't be able to tell any of it's happening, right? That's the real trick.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. Oh, congratulations on doing such a good job as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what kind of career steps do you take when you first come in working in OSH? You typically come in with no qualifications or no experience necessarily.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a mix. So a lot of people that work as casuals, they might have finished up their year 12 and they might decide, they might just think, I don't actually know what I want to do, but I really love children. I love working with children. I love that interaction. So I'm just going to give it a crack and see how it pans out. That's kind of one cohort that we see. Another really large one is, obviously people like Shaniah that might kind of buckle down and want to be specifically studying working with children. So that might be pursuing the diploma through our registered training organisation, CPLE, or it might be pursuing a teaching degree, and they might think that this is a similar context that I want to work in. You can't really work as a teacher without the qualification, so this is a good kind of adjacent to, still working in the area, still getting to grow your skills. And then we have a third bunch, which are people who plan to do something completely different with their life. They don't want to work with children forever. They still hold all of those same values, but at the end of the day, they think casual work and out-of-school hours care is a really flexible job, and it's something, I enjoy doing, hopefully. But at the end of the day, it's flexible, and I can do my studies to be an accountant, for example, and then once I've finished, that'll be it for me. So we've got that kind of mix of everyone's different goals and dreams, and not everyone wants to stay with us forever, and that's absolutely okay. But fingers crossed, some of us do. I feel like I actually dodged the question though. What was the question?
Okay. It was what career steps comes next. So I suppose.
Yeah, sorry. So that's the context of everyone and what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you'll pretty much come in as a casual educator with generally no formal qualifications. And then at our sites, we're required to pretty much have people with a certain level of qualification, be it the actual qualification itself or working towards. You might have people like Shaniah, you're studying your Cert 3, is that right?
Yeah, through CPLE, so through comms.
Comms at work, yeah.
Yeah, so studying a Cert 3, and what they want to do is meet that working towards criteria and get that 2IC or second qualified position and really start assisting in service operations on a higher level. So that's when they'll start being a bit more explicitly responsible for like our compliance goals, that kind of thing, or the design of an operation of a service. So Shaniah might have a bit more weight in talking about how routines function and what's on the menu and what our program looks like. So, and then from there, we have our program coordinators who are really, really responsible overall for quality service delivery. At the end of the day, every single aspect of it, they don't do it all, but they're essentially the supervisor on site for our teams, and it's their responsibility to make sure that comes through and we meet all our obligations, or not just our obligations, but hopefully strive for that really high level of quality that we really want as an organisation. Moving from there, I think there's so many things that someone with that skill as a program coordinator can do. You're looking at someone that's, even though they might be quite young, they've actually got this really fantastic set of skills in, excelling at service delivery, communicating with a range of stakeholders, leading a team, meeting their operational compliance requirements. I mean, show me a single employer out there that doesn't value that set of skills, right? Even if it's not explicitly working with children, they just have such strong transfer skills that I really like to think the sky's the limit for those people, whether it's continuing on with the organisation, continuing working with children, or deciding that they're ready to look elsewhere.
And that's particularly applicable here at Communities at Work. I think of our organisational office, I look around, we have people in our accounting team, people in our marketing team who have worked in OSH and worked their way up and then are applying those skills in an area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Separate to that, yeah.
And then there's people like me that I was studying to be a teacher, and then I don't know if I got bitten by the OSH bug at some point. I think I like to think as well, all those skills I talked about, I realized that I really liked the kind of policy and compliance side of things. I liked leading a large team of adults, and I kind of thought, it's not for any distaste of teaching, but I don't think I want to go into that environment. I think I want to continue what I'm doing here because it was so fulfilling, and I feel like I had a lot of impact, but it let me kind of flex those skills while still staying adjacent to children, right? Because at the end of the day, I think there's an important value set there of outcomes for children that I just don't see myself giving up anytime soon.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the organisation again.
Yeah. So it's funny where we all end up, right?
Yeah. Now, did anyone have any final thoughts or additional things that they want to make sure we got across here?
Look, at the end of the day, if you really feel that value for outcomes for children, you really align with what you've heard during this podcast, I'd recommend you have a crack at it and give OSH a go. Worst case scenario, you just feel like it's not quite for you. Best case scenario, you could find a really fulfilling career option that you can stick to. And I feel like that's worth the roll of the dice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. We're really looking forward to hearing from everyone soon. And thank you so much for joining me today, guys.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Beautiful. We'll see you all next time. This podcast is recorded and produced on Ngunnawal country. If you are interested in OSH or interested in working with Communities at Work, I recommend you head to our website, commsatwork.org/OSH, that's OSHC, and we can be in contact with you through there. You can fill in a get in touch form or take a look at our careers page. But you can also see all of our contact details in the episode description below. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.